But Bitcoin is even more important than your traditional alternative assets because it is ultimately going to eat into the store of value. And so as that continues to happen, capital gets sucked into the hardest money in existence, and Bitcoin is the hardest money. And so as soon as you understand that, bam, you updated your goggles, you see the new world for what it is, you completely change the way that you look at a bunch of different things, and that is the intelligence test of where we're headed. And I think that's why you see all of these companies, people trying to buy Bitcoin, Coinbase getting into the S&P, all those things you just mentioned. It all comes back to, guess who's driving all of that? Bitcoiners who see the new world for what it is, and they are the barbarians at the gate. That is our generation's version, and it's a hell of a sight to see. I know most of these people. Hell yes. Let's go. I love seeing them be ambitious and go on assault.
Anthony Pompliano gets right to the point that many investors overlook. Bitcoin is now a macro asset that is closely linked to the flow of global liquidity rather than only a speculative one. Bitcoin doesn't merely respond when global central banks loosen monetary policy, it actually rises. Pompliano draws attention to the current development of this dynamic. The liquidity is increasing. The money supply is gradually increasing even though the Fed isn't cutting interest rates just yet. Central banks in Asia and Europe, meanwhile, are adding capital, easing their attitudes on policy, and inadvertently paving the way for Bitcoin's next move. Pomp claims that this is mathematical in nature rather than random. When there is a flow of liquidity, Bitcoin prospers. If you're intrigued by bold predictions and deep financial insights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more engaging content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the video.
All right, so Bitcoin, now we're back to real reality. Bitcoin is doing very well, mainly because Bitcoin is very sensitive to global liquidity, and global liquidity has been expanding. Not only did we see China panic and cut interest rates and print a little bit of money, 1 trillion yuan, but also we see in the United States that there are a number of things that the U.S. continues to inch closer to that would be increasing of global liquidity. On top of that, countries all around the world. So as M2 money supply, global liquidity is all increasing, Bitcoin nicely follows. And so I think that Bitcoin will continue to grind higher here. Second thing that Bitcoin's got is Bitcoin is watching all these public companies keep buying it. They are assaulting. Bitcoiners are assaulting Wall Street. How many public companies do we need buying Bitcoin for there to be buying pressure on Bitcoin? Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to that. Third thing that Bitcoin's got going for it is that Bitcoin in particular is now transcending itself into becoming the benchmark rate. I've been saying this for a long time. Everyone used to say the quote unquote risk-free rate is bonds. That is going to go away. The quote unquote risk-free rate is going to become Bitcoin. And it is for the younger generation already. Those younger people are going to grow older. The older people love you, but you're going to be gone. And so there you're going to have the new benchmark rate is going to be Bitcoin. And if that is the benchmark rate, then guess what? If you can't beat it, you got to buy it. If you can't beat it, you got to buy it. There are a lot of people who can't beat Bitcoin. And so guess what? They're buying it. It is the new benchmark rate. And therefore, I think that is a 20, 30 year kind of time horizon that we're going to watch this kind of ascend to. All of finance will use Bitcoin as that benchmark rate. Naturally, that asset's going to keep going up. Is everyone wants to draw a line in the sand and say, Bitcoiners, you're on one side, traditional Wall Street, you're on the other side, face each other like old Civil War, march across the field, fight it out, and there's one winner. That's not what's happening. The Bitcoiners are walking into Wall Street, and the Wall Street bankers are putting their arms around the shoulder of the Bitcoiners, and they're saying, let's go win together. Because guess what happens? When MicroStrategy's buying more Bitcoin, the Wall Street banks, the investment bankers, they're making money. When all of a sudden you see Coinbase get into the S&P 500, the pensioners, the index funds, the S&P holders, they're all making money. And so the beauty of this is it's not a zero-sum game. For Bitcoin, the Bitcoiners, the publicly traded companies associated with Bitcoin, as they win, Wall Street is going to win too. Wall Street is not stupid. They understand if there's somewhere where money can be made, the economic incentive will bring them there. And that's why you see Wall Street embracing this. You don't raise hundreds of millions of dollars as a public company unless somebody on Wall Street's getting paid. You don't actually build these companies into multi-billion-dollar businesses without Wall Street helping you do it.
I think finally, like, the incentives are aligned, if you will.
Wall Street didn't like Bitcoin until Wall Street figured out how to make money with Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Now they're like, oh, y'all got to wait for us to make money? We love Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is ultimately what we're watching happen here. Again, remember I said community notes and Bitcoin? Dapped? Guess what? Wall Street Bitcoiners, dapped. Like,
Someone get him
they
off the internet.
understand exactly now how to take this new thing. It's a shiny toy that brings new clients, new revenue, new profits.
Yeah.
If you go to a Wall Street bank and say, I can bring you clients, revenue, and profits, guess what they say? Why don't you sit down here, young man? We have a nice little spread for you. We could eat over a nice meeting where we try to take your soul.
Oh my gosh.
Because ultimately that is where this is all headed, is Bitcoin is going to ascend into the depths of the traditional financial world because they can't live without it. And that is the part that makes people in the traditional world uncomfortable, but you can't stop the truth.
Understanding Bitcoin requires a fresh perspective on the world, not just knowledge of money or economics. According to Anthony Pompliano, those who support Bitcoin frequently begin to doubt other centralized systems as well, such as the large hospital system, the industrial food industry, or the media, because Bitcoin imparts a more profound lesson that truth should be decentralized and power should belong to the individual. They are driven to initiatives like community fact-checking on platforms like Twitter. Bitcoin is a movement rather than merely technology. It's all about individual liberty, openness, and creating a better, more self-sufficient lifestyle. Everything from how we develop technology to how we approach politics is beginning to be influenced by that thinking. To remain up to date on the most recent developments in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and the digital economy, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications.
But Bitcoin is even more important than your traditional alternative assets because it is ultimately going to eat into the store of value. And so as that continues to happen, capital gets sucked into the hardest money in existence, and Bitcoin is the hardest money. And so as soon as you understand that, bam, you updated your goggles, you see the new world for what it is, you completely change the way that you look at a bunch of different things, and that is the intelligence test of where we're headed. And I think that's why you see all of these companies, people trying to buy Bitcoin, Coinbase getting into the S&P, all those things you just mentioned. It all comes back to, guess who's driving all of that? Bitcoiners who see the new world for what it is, and they are the barbarians at the gate. That is our generation's version, and it's a hell of a sight to see. I know most of these people. Hell yes, let's go. I love seeing them be ambitious and go on assault. To understand Bitcoin, you have to look at the world through a lens that is very different than the lens that was the accurate perspective of the world 30 years ago. And so the reason why it is so controversial is there are some people who are left in the old world. They're looking through their binoculars, but their binoculars ain't showing them how the world looks today. Instead, there's a whole new group of people. It's like a new version of the binoculars came out. They put them goggles on, and when they look through it, they see with clarity. But the people looking through the old perspective, they are wishing for a world that no longer exists. The new generation of people who understand Bitcoin, they are looking through a lens that accurately understands how the world operates today. And so that is the intelligence test of financial markets in this day and age. Do you believe in Bitcoin or do you not? If you do not, that's all I need to know, because it tells me that you have not updated your worldview yet. But if you go and you talk to the Bitcoiners, people are like, oh, the Bitcoiners are insane. They have all these crazy views, like they don't want to eat high carb, high sugar type foods. You're like, what does that have to do with Bitcoin? It's a whole worldview. It's a way of looking at what's happening around you, looking at society, looking at all this stuff. The ideas of decentralization, community notes on X and Bitcoin, dapped up. The same thing. It's decentralized intelligence. It's decentralized computing. It's the power of the crowd, right? Those ideas, one is all about information. The other is all about economic freedom. And so you go around and you look at this stuff. Well, imagine on the computing side, Bitcoin built a decentralized network, right? It's the strongest computer network in the world. Amazon, Google, all these companies, they're copying it. They're doing the best they can. They're building POPs all around the world. They're trying the best they possibly can to go ahead and have a decentralized, even they all own it, but having that resilient infrastructure around the world. Then you go and you look at things like trade. Then you go look at things like supply chains. Then you go look at things like medicine, right? You keep going through this and you see these commonalities that go throughout society. And so to me, Bitcoin is the intelligence test. If you have the old perspective on the world, which is an outdated perspective, and you have not updated your mental software yet, you will not understand Bitcoin. But if you have updated your mental software and you understand that the world operates differently today than it did 30 years ago, and we better understand what's happening, one, you will be sympathetic to Bitcoin, but also two is it will put you in a position to better understand all of the world around you. And that, my friends, is why when stocks went down 20% earlier this year, and I was on here and I kept saying it over and 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 over again that stocks were going to go back up and that everyone who was freaking out was going to look ridiculous in hindsight. Here's hindsight. They look ridiculous. People were talking about the Great Depression. One, I went and looked at what happens when tariffs get put in place. There are still people who are arguing with me about what happens with tariffs, even though the same thing that happened in 2018 is happening now. Tariffs are deflationary. How do I know that? We've been putting tariffs on for months now. We started in February. It is now May. Inflation has been crashing this entire time. People, oh, don't worry, inflation is going to come. No, it's not. Inflation is not coming. And so when you think about that, you can say that if inflation is at 1.5%, the whole thing is you have a bigger worry of deflation, of economic slowdown when you put tariffs in place. So yes, you start trying to be theoretical about individual product prices and stuff. That's not how it works. And so that was one big thing was I actually went and I did the work and I published it publicly. I went product by product by product and showed the prices, showed the chart changes, showed the inflation metrics, and people still were like, I don't believe you. That was one. Two, if you can turn around market sentiment with a couple of posts on social media, you ain't gonna have a real recession. And that was very obvious because there was multiple times on the way down where a single tweet, a single interview on television would all of a sudden, you would get these like relief rallies. And it was like the market wanted to go higher on news. Nothing fundamentally changed on the way down. Nothing fundamentally changed on these relief rallies other than words. If words can create a downturn, words can create an uptrend. And so naturally, it was just, this is all fear-induced. And when the fear dissipates, which it will, enthusiasm will come back twice as hard. Pretty easy to see.
Pompliano's message is straightforward yet impactful. You need to change your perspective in order to fully comprehend Bitcoin. The outdated way of thinking that was developed decades ago simply isn't effective anymore. Many people continue to view the business, technology, and culture of today through antiquated lenses. They haven't changed the way they think, therefore they are unable to see what is actually happening. In this way, Bitcoin transcends its status as a digital currency. Those who are familiar with Bitcoin have a tendency to think differently about everything. They value individual liberty, decentralization, and truth that is independent of authority. They are therefore dubious of centralized healthcare systems, packaged foods, and the media in general. Everything is interconnected. Bitcoin symbolizes a change to a more self-sufficient, open, and robust way of living. Pompliano notes that he remained composed despite the chaos and the collapsing markets. He recognized the wider picture. He realized that rather than fundamentals, the market was being driven by fear. Additionally, a few posts or words of encouragement could raise prices again, just as fear brought them down. It's the way contemporary markets respond, so it's not random. Being able to see behind the headlines is more difficult than simply following them. As we draw to a close, keep in mind that you will miss what is truly happening at this moment if you continue to hold to the way things used to be. Bitcoin is a warning indicator. It serves as a warning, and your comprehension of it reveals a lot about how well you've kept up with the modern world. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you thought his viewpoint was helpful so you don't miss any updates. We'd love to know what you think about the future of cryptocurrency markets, so please share your ideas in the comments section. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.